What if the most powerful way to make someone obsessed was to remove yourself completely? Most people think attention is the key to control, that the more you engage, the more influence you have. But the truth? The real power lies in absence. When you disappear, you don't just leave a gap. You create a psychological void, one their mind cannot ignore. Because the brain hates unanswered questions. It craves closure. It needs certainty. And when it doesn't get that, it spirals. They start replaying old conversations. They start second-guessing their choices. They start obsessing over you, not because you did anything, but because you stopped doing anything. And that is the secret behind no contact. It doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them fixate on you. When a manipulator loses control. There was once a manipulator who thrived on control. They played mind games, they pushed buttons. They always knew how to pull people back in. But one day, someone walked away. No explanation, no final argument, no closure, just silence. At first, the manipulator brushed it off. They'll be back. They're just being dramatic. But days passed, then weeks, still nothing. And slowly, the confidence turned into panic. They started checking their phone more. They started finding excuses to reach out. They started questioning everything, because now they were no longer in control. Now they were the ones chasing. And by the time they realized it, it was too late. Because no contact isn't just about making them miss you. It's about making them obsessed with you. Why this works? The mind is wired to seek closure. It hates unresolved endings. It cannot tolerate uncertainty. And when you disappear, you force them into a game they never expected to play. They can't stop thinking about you because their brain won't let them. And that's the dark psychology behind no contact. The game begins. No contact isn't about punishment. It's about power. It's about taking back control without saying a single word. And when you do it right, you don't just walk away. You make them wish they could follow. The scarcity mindset. Why no contact makes you more valuable. People only crave what they think they can't have. As long as you're available, as long as you respond, as long as you show you care, they feel no urgency. But the moment you disappear, everything changes, because the brain automatically assigns higher value to things that are rare. It's wired to want what it can't have. The law of scarcity. When something is always present, it's taken for granted. But when it's gone, the mind magnifies its importance. They assume they can always come back. They assume you'll always be there. Until one day, you're not. And suddenly, they feel the loss. Not because they actually miss you, but because their mind wasn't prepared for the absence. The sudden shift effect. Predictability creates comfort. People like knowing what to expect. But when you go from being engaged to being completely silent, it creates a psychological shock. They don't understand why you stopped responding. They don't know what changed. And the more they try to figure it out, the more they start thinking about you, even if they never valued you before, even if they thought they were done with you. Now, they can't stop wondering, and that is where the obsession begins. The withdrawal effect. People don't realize how much they rely on your presence until that presence is gone, even if they ignored you, even if they thought they moved on, even if they believed you didn't matter. Once you disappear, there's a void, a space that only you used to fill. At first, they try to ignore it. Then, They try to replace it, but nothing feels the same. Because what they're missing isn't just you. It's the control they used to have over you. Why they always come back. They don't chase you because they suddenly care. They don't come back because they love you. They come back because they need validation. They need to know they haven't lost their grip. They need to feel like they still matter. They need proof that they can still pull you back in. And if you give in, the spell breaks. But if you don't, the obsession deepens. The game has only just begun. This is just the first stage, because when scarcity takes hold, it doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them desperate for you. And that's when the real chase begins. The psychological spiral, how no contact triggers obsession. The mind hates unfinished stories. When you leave without a trace, their brain doesn't just accept it. It fights against it. It demands an answer. And when it doesn't get one, it spirals. At first, they feel nothing, maybe even relief. They assume it's temporary. They assume you'll be back. They assume they're still in control. But as time passes and you remain silent, that confidence starts to crack. The brain's need for closure. The human brain is wired to seek closure. It needs to complete unfinished narratives. That's why being ignored feels worse than rejection. That's why ghosting lingers in the mind longer than an argument. When you disappear, you create an open loop in their brain. And instead of moving on, they start replaying every conversation, analyzing every detail, looking for clues. Because if they don't understand why you left, they can't close the loop. And that's how the obsession begins. From confidence to panic. At first, they tell themselves it's no big deal. They convince themselves you'll be back. But then, days pass, then weeks, and still, nothing. Now, doubt starts creeping in. Wait, why haven't they reached out? Are they serious this time? Did I underestimate them? What started as indifference turns into confusion. Confusion turns into anxiety, and anxiety turns into panic. The anxiety loop. Their mind goes into overdrive. They start checking their phone constantly. They start stalking your social media, looking for any sign of you. They start imagining worst-case scenarios in their head. Because the brain can't handle uncertainty, it fills in the blanks with fear. And when fear takes over, they stop thinking logically. They don't just miss you, they start needing you. Not because they love you, not because they care, but because they need relief from their own thoughts. The trap has been set. And when the anxiety becomes unbearable, that's when they make the first move. They reach out. They test the waters. They try to regain control. Because silence didn't just make them miss you, it made them obsessed with you. The power reversal, why they start chasing you. No contact isn't just about walking away, it's about flipping the script. Because when you disappear, you don't just create space. You create a sense of loss. And the human mind is wired to fear loss more than it values gain. The loss aversion effect. People don't chase what they have. They chase what they're afraid of losing. As long as you're available, they assume you'll always be there. They assume they can come and go as they please. But when you vanish without warning, it shatters that illusion of control. Now, instead of taking you for granted, they start questioning everything. And the more they fear they've lost you, the more desperate they become to get you back. When ego turns into desperation. At first, they feel confident. They tell themselves, they'll be back. They're just playing games. They can't ignore me forever. But then days pass. Still nothing. Weeks pass. Still nothing. Now doubt creeps in. What started as ego turns into anxiety, and anxiety turns into panic. They start checking their phone more often. They start wondering if they miscalculated. They start obsessing over what went wrong, and when the panic sets in, that's when they break. The trigger response. When someone feels like they're losing control, they act out. They start sending random messages just to see if you'll respond. They create fake emergencies just to force a reaction. They stir up drama just to test if you still care. Because in their mind, the silence is unbearable. They need proof that they still have an impact on you, that you still think about them, that they haven't really lost you. And the moment you break no contact, the spell is broken. Now they know you were waiting. Now they know you still care. Now they have the power again. The real game begins. But if you hold your ground, if you stay silent, if you show them that you've truly moved on, that's when the real obsession begins. No contact mistakes, the reason most people fail. No contact is a psychological game, and like any game, one wrong move can cost you everything. Because if you break no contact the wrong way, you don't just lose the advantage. You give them all the power back, and once they realize you were just waiting, they stop chasing. Breaking no contact too soon. The biggest mistake, giving in too early. At first, silence drives them crazy. They feel the loss. They start doubting themselves. They begin to panic. But just when they're about to crack, you reach out. You reply to their message. You like their post. You show them that you're still watching. And in that moment, they win. Because now they know you were waiting. They know no contact was just a tactic. And instead of making them desperate for you, you just proved you're still emotionally invested. Now, they don't feel loss. They feel relief, because they never really lost you. Seeking closure. The second mistake, thinking you need answers. Most people break no contact because they want closure. They want an explanation. They want to understand why things happened the way they did. But here's the truth. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you take for yourself. If you reach out for closure, you're not actually looking for an answer. You're looking for reconnection. And that's exactly what they want, because now they get to control the conversation. They get to rewrite the story. They get to pull you back in. And before you know it, you're right back where you started. Leaving the door open. The final mistake, giving them hope. No contact only works when they believe you're truly gone. If they think you're still waiting, if they think they still have a chance, they won't feel the full weight of the loss. They'll take their time. They'll test the waters. They'll assume you'll be there whenever they decide to come back. And as long as they believe that, they won't chase you, because they don't fear losing you. How one mistake destroyed everything. A person was executing no contact perfectly. For weeks, they didn't respond. They didn't engage. They let the manipulator spiral on their own. And then one day, they sent a single message. "Hey, I hope you're doing okay." And just like that, the power shift was gone. The manipulator stopped obsessing. They stopped worrying. They stopped feeling out of control. Because now they knew they still had a hold. They knew they still had access. And just like that, No contact was broken. The golden rule of no contact. Never break first. Never show weakness. Never let them know you still care. Because the moment you do, you lose everything. What happens when you do it right? But if you master no contact the right way, you don't just make them miss you, you make them fear losing you forever. The ultimate power move, becoming the one they can't have. No contact isn't just about making them miss you, it's about making them realize they lost you forever. Because when someone truly believes they can't have you, that's when the obsession becomes unbearable. Emotional detachment. The only way to fully regain power: stop caring, not pretend to stop caring, not use silence as a strategy, but actually detach. Because as long as you're still checking on them, as long as you're still wondering how they feel, as long as you still care, they still have power over you. But the moment you let go, the moment their actions no longer affect you, that's when they feel the shift. That's when they realize they're not in control anymore. That's when the panic sets in. Because now, they can't read you. They can't manipulate you. They can't use your emotions against you. Because you have none left for them. The silent glow-up. The second stage of ultimate power. Thriving in silence. When they check in, because they will, they expect to find the same person they once controlled. But instead, they see someone completely different. Someone stronger, someone better, someone they can't reach anymore. Now, they don't just feel your absence, they feel your evolution. And nothing hurts more than realizing you became everything they wanted without them. The too late realization. At first, they tell themselves they can get you back. But as time passes, as they see you moving on, as they realize you're not responding, that's when it hits them. They didn't just lose you temporarily, they lost you permanently. Now, the obsession turns into regret. The regret turns into self-doubt. And the self-doubt turns into self-punishment. They replay everything in their mind. They start blaming themselves. They start wondering, what if? But by then, it's too late. They don't just miss you. They don't just want you. They can't have you. The final shift. And that's when you win. Because at this point, you're not just ignoring them. You've made yourself untouchable. The final execution. No contact isn't about revenge. It isn't about playing games. It isn't even about making them suffer. It's about making yourself untouchable. Because when you truly disappear, not just physically, but emotionally, you don't just make them miss you, you make them obsessed. The psychological trap of no contact. When you vanish without a trace, you create an unfinished story in their mind. And the brain hates unfinished stories. It will replay memories. It will search for answers. It will fill in the blanks with endless possibilities. And that's why they can't stop thinking about you. The power shift. The moment you disappear, the power dynamic reverses. Now, they're the ones feeling uncertain. They're the ones craving validation. They're the ones desperately looking for a way back in. Because as long as you were available, they never feared losing you. But once they realize they actually lost you, that's when the obsession becomes permanent. The biggest no contact mistake. The only way to ruin no contact, breaking it too soon. The moment you reach out, the moment you check in, the moment you show any sign that you still care, you lose everything. Now, instead of them chasing you, you're back in their control. Because they know you were waiting, they know you never really left, and all the power shifts back to them. The final transformation. But if you do no contact the right way, you don't just make them regret losing you. You don't just make them miss you. You become the one they can never have again. And that is the ultimate power. Now it's your turn. Have you ever used no contact? What was the result? Comment below and let's discuss.